our show. Together we serve. Welcome to our show. Sit back and enjoy. We will talk with people about their stories. With our host, Ramona, we're ready to start. Together we serve. Together we serve. Together we serve. Together we serve. Welcome to our show. Together we serve. Welcome to our show. Sit back and enjoy. Education, inspiration, motivation for business and life. With our host, Ramona, we're ready to start.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Just because you're an authority on something and you put a book out there, that'll give people a good amount of information. But you, when you're writing your book, you have your stories in there. You have your experience. You have what you went through or what you're going through. Even if you're writing an expert book, what we call a genius book, which is your area of expertise, you bring that to life with the stories and the examples that you've experienced yourself. There are people out there that because of your stories will understand that so much more deeply, and it'll hit home far better than any other author, because there are people out there like you that have gone through your experience.
Welcome, everyone, to Together We Serve TV show. It is another Friday. I'm super excited because I got a guest. Guess what? He loves Star Wars. Do you like Star Wars? I do. Watch all of them, watch all the shows, but that's not why we're here. But part of the reason I think he likes Star Wars, I'm going to ask him this question right away, is the marketing. Are they driving bold, fearless marketing? Are they making digital transformations? I would think so. You go to Disney Plus, I think every other month there's a new Star Wars show coming out. That's what we're going to talk about. How would you like to do marketing like Star Wars, Marvel, Progressive, Starbucks, and on and on and on and on and on? Of course, you're not going to get to that level, and I don't think you need to make $1 trillion. If you doubled your income or tripled your income, you'd probably be pretty good. Marketing is important. You got to have sales, but the sister to sales is marketing because they tie so well together. So let's jump into it. We're also going to talk about neuro-marketing, a term you probably haven't heard before. Let's jump in. Bring Vince back here. There he is. Vince, welcome to the show. I had to bring you up. There he is.
Hey, how you doing, Steve? By the way, your theme song is going to be stuck in my head all day. Thanks a lot for that, and I say sarcastically.
Marketing, neuro-marketing. We just jump right into it.
Yeah.
On a quick note for the Star Wars fans, why do you love Star Wars so much?
Well, funny enough, it actually isn't from the marketing, but it's you've got to picture who it spoke to. I was a 7-year-old when that movie came out, and when the first Star Wars ever came out. And I vividly remember our babysitter's boyfriend wanted to go and see the movie, but he was like, I'm worried it's a kid's movie. Let's take the boy with us. And she goes, okay. So we went in, going into the big city, sitting in the cinema, and I had never seen anything like it before in my life. It was just incredible, this giant universe that had opened up to me. But there were three key things that really resonated with me. One of them was the fact that Luke was this farm boy who technically would amount to nothing. And all of a sudden, he found out he's called to something bigger in his life. He's called to save the galaxy. And for me, coming from horrible environment as a child, coming from an abusive home, that kind of hope that he had, I mean, it's called A New Hope now. It wasn't called it back then, but that whole concept of hope was just so foreign and so important to me. So that was really powerful. Plus, if you look at the entire original trilogy, it's a redemption arc of an evil father figure. So, I mean, hello, every abused child was going, if Darth Vader can turn, then maybe my father can turn as well. He didn't, but that's okay. But then the other reason is I have 5 sisters, and at the time they're all bar one were younger than me, and we were, the type of movies my sisters would go and watch were Disney princess things, where, I need the prince to come and save me and all this. And it's just rubbish. And I was like, this is not healthy. Even as a young child, I knew this wasn't healthy. And all of a sudden, I was watching these movies where you had Princess Leia, who was a diplomat. She was intelligent. She was a warrior. She was fierce. She was beautiful. She was everything and didn't need a man as well, which I thought was awesome. And she ended up with Han Solo, but she didn't need it. In fact, beginning of the movie, she didn't need rescuing. They came to rescue her. She ended up rescuing them. So I was like, I forced all of my sisters to watch this original Star Wars trilogy. I'm like, this is what you should be aiming for in your life, not Disney princesses, for goodness sake. So, yeah, so huge impact on me, man.
Well, that story is the credit to marketing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No,
Right?
absolutely.
You told a story, which is we're
Well,
drawing into.
actually, it's a credit to neuromarketing in that George Lucas, when they wrote the story, he understood his target market, and that's the key to marketing. Is if you can get inside the brain and inside the sense of identity, which is exactly what those movies did for me, and pretty much for every other child that saw it at the time. If you can tap into their sense of who they are and their identity, then immediately you have a right to win. So yeah, they were a masterclass in neuromarketing.
That's powerful. Let's dive in. Driving bold, fearless marketing and digital transformation. That's a lot of words. That is pretty powerful. I want you to dive in on what that really means to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the whole concept of bold, fearless marketing is really about taking chance and taking risks, right? And this is something that's important to me. I'm like every other entrepreneur and every other marketer. I'm riddled with self-doubt, riddled with imposter syndrome. And I don't care how high the ladder you go. I don't care how experienced you are, how well recognized you are probably going to deal with that as well. So for me, I had to kind of come to the realization that to be fearless is not to have absence of fear. It's not to be without fear. It's not to do things and go, oh, this is easy. It was to have fear, but have that fear not take hold of me and to not hold me back. So they use the term, it's not being under the bondage of fear. So when you understand that and you can kind of go, okay, I need to push through this, then you can start to take those risks. It's about putting yourself out there. And this is the one thing I teach entrepreneurs over and over again is you can't stay hidden. This is the key thing. If you're building a brand and you're building a business, they need to see you. People buy from people. They buy from you. The reason that people want what you've got is not because it's a great product. It might be a great product, but it's because of your connection with them. And that dives kind of into the whole concept of neuromarketing and understanding that. And yeah, so driving bold, fearless marketing is about taking risks. But again, it's about understanding your audience.
Yeah, that risk or business is a risk. Entrepreneur is a risk. You talk to a lot, I do as well. If you're not risk tolerant, probably don't want to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. So it's powerful. And I had actually a couple of sales shows this morning, people to do sales, but we also forget the marketing side because, you know, people make a ton of money, you know, and then they do this. They're just, COVID, somebody built something and it's like perfect for COVID. And then COVID falls away and then because they didn't do any marketing.
The other thing to understand, Steve, is that sales is, in a lot of cases, and I'm not belittling any salespeople here, so don't come at me, but sales is more transactional. You're at that kind of pointed end of the transaction there. Marketing is about bringing them to that point so that it's more than a transaction. It's about tapping in, like I said, tapping into the sense of who they are. It's about tapping into what we call the limbic system, it's the emotional part of the brain. When you can do that, that sales conversation is so much more than just a transaction. It's a relationship, essentially. It's actually kind of becoming a partnership with your clients.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you to describe marketing. You just did it. So you're in mind, which is good because that's exactly what people need to know. And there's many definitions and many ways to do it. And that's the beauty of marketing because you can customize it to your business. But talk about neuromarketing because I know people know NLP and mindset work with your head, but talk about neuromarketing.
Well, I like to upset all the NLP people by saying NLP is just pseudo neuromarketing. But anyway, so neuromarketing is simply understanding the mind of your target market. So understanding your customers, your potential clients, understanding their mind. And the way we kind of treat this in neuromarketing is we break it down into the three core components of decision making. So if you look at our brains, like if you look at it from a purely psychological perspective, there are so many different elements in our brain that perform different functions. You got the amygdala, you got the cortex, you got the frontal lobes, you got the brainstem. All these things perform different functions. But when you're trying to explain that to people, it gets really complex because you go, the brainstem does this function under this circumstance, but under another circumstance, it does something completely different, and it gets complex. So what we did as neuromarketers is we grouped them together in three core areas. There is the reptilian brain, which is the brainstem. It is essentially the defensive mechanism of the brain. So it's the thing that reminds you to breathe, to not hold fire, not jump off a cliff, all those kind of random things. It's the thing that keeps you safe. And this is the part of the brain that's always, it doesn't really make a decision for you. It's not involved in the decision process in that sense, but it's certainly the thing that will opt you out of a decision. So it's the thing that will actually make you go, something's not quite right here. Like something feels a little bit off. So I'm going to opt out of making a decision right now. And we deal with that from a marketing perspective. We deal with this part of the brain really, really easy, right? This is things like testimonials, trust badges, case studies, like anyone talking about you that's external to you, then, word of mouth stuff immediately deals with that reptilian brain because it goes, well, if they're saying it about you, they obviously know more than you do. So therefore, this is okay. I don't need to jump in there and deal with this situation and opt out of it. So that's the reptilian brain. Then there are the other two core areas of the brain. And this is where we focus in marketing, but we often focus in the wrong area. So a lot of people think that the neocortex, which is the kind of least evolved part of our brain, that is the logical part of our brain. And a lot of people focus their marketing efforts there. That's why you see things like, benefits, features, like listing out all the reasons, like the pricing models, all this kind of stuff is logical. And a lot of people are trying to appeal to your logical brain to say, hey, you need to buy my high ticket item, or you need to sign up for my program, or you need to buy my product, or whatever it is. And unless it's really, really transactional, like something really small, like buying a toothbrush, you don't generally make that decision in the neocortex, in that logical part of the brain. You generally make that decision in the emotional part of the brain, which we call the limbic system, and then you justify that decision by all the neocortex aspects. So in other words, you make the decision in the emotional, and you rationalize it by going, oh, here's all the benefits, here's all the features, here's all the value adds, here's the pricing, all that kind of stuff as well. So as neuromarketers, our focus is really on that limbic system. It's focusing on the emotional part of the brain and often taking them out of the logical into the emotional. And there are kind of two core areas that we do this. The first is we deal with this with things like cognitive bias. So your brain has all these shortcuts called cognitive biases. These are these patterns that your brain is designed to use as little energy as possible so it'll make a decision. So things like urgency, for example. So rather than sit down and go, I'm going to make a decision based on all the different factors here, you go, you know what? If I don't sign up now, I'm going to miss out. So I'm going to quickly sign up for this thing. So that's taking you out of the logical into the emotional part of the brain. And that works. Like, honestly, you can use, I've written books on cognitive bias. You can literally go through and use these as a bit of a formula of how to take people out of that logical brain into the emotional brain. But these are the base level. And as marketers, you don't want to be at that base level. You want to go into another layer of this, which I call needs-based marketing. And this is where you're tapping into, through that limbic system, through that emotional part of the brain, you are tapping into their psychological needs. And if you understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have like all your safety needs. You have these two layers in the middle that are super important to us as marketers. They are your psychological needs. Well, the first is the need to belong. So you need a sense of community. And the second above that is the layer, which is esteem. So in other words, within that community, you need to be standing out compared to other people. So tapping into those two parts of the brain, honestly, that's the right to win. When you nail that, and you see brands do this all the time. Patagonia, great example of that. They tap into your sense of identity, your sense of community, your sense of esteem, and then boom, all of a sudden there are people out there that will only ever buy Patagonia. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, they're a popular company. Now, are all three of these components important, or can you have one? Do they all have to work together?
Yeah, they all have to work together. I mean, the challenge that we see is people focus in the wrong areas. So they either neglect the reptilian brain, and it doesn't matter how good you are at tapping into their sense of identity and dealing with all the logical needs. If they don't trust you, we always talk about know, like, trust. If they don't trust you, if that reptilian brain's on guard, it doesn't matter how much you try and convince them, they're still going to pull back from that decision. So you need to deal with that. And there's actually a really simple way to deal with this. Now, we talked about trust badges and testimonials and things. One of the simplest way is when you're talking to people, be vulnerable. Like when you show vulnerability to someone, something really interesting happens in the reptilian brain. The moment you share a story, like a personal story, and you show vulnerability there, their reptilian brain goes, hey, wait a minute. This must be a safe environment because they're making themselves vulnerable. So if they're making themselves vulnerable, I can be vulnerable. Oh, okay, this is a safe space. I'm not needed now. And the reptilian brain goes off in the corner, has a coffee, or sits in fetal position. I don't know what it does, but it's no longer activated, so it's out of the equation.
So that's why when we listen to comedians that talk about themselves, Kevin James comes to my head. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
You know, I can't fit in that straight too because I didn't say he's a fat guy, but look at this big guy. Why would girls date me? He's funny as hell, and I laugh. Is that part of that? The reptilian me goes,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. But here's the other thing that's at play there, though. That's also tapping into your limbic system, because when we talk about those psychological needs, when we talk about the need to belong, a lot of people mistake this. So a lot of people think if we're trying to create a sense of community, that means create a Facebook group around your brand or something, or create some kind of stuff. No, that's far from what we're trying to achieve here. What you're really saying is you want someone to feel seen and heard, and you want them to feel like they belong. So it really is a sense of belonging rather than community. And Kevin James is a great example of that, because when he shares about his size, then if you are an overweight person or you're somebody who's a bigger size, you feel like that person understands you. You relate to them, and they're like, oh, he's my people. I get it. I'm part of this community. I'll give you a good example of this, actually, Steve. So I share this quite a lot because it's such a powerful example in my own life. I'm a huge whiskey fan, right? I love a single malt Scotch. It's one of my favorite things. Everything about it I love. But anyway, I won't go down that rabbit hole. But quite a few years back now, I saw a Kickstarter for hip flasks. And these are hip flasks designed for whiskey lovers, right? These are awesome. So they're made of glass, special like tempered glass. You can literally drop these on concrete. They won't shatter. They were amazing. So made of this tempered glass. And the reason they use this glass rather than metal is because with one of the things we found is even with silver, even with stainless, you can still taint the taste of the whiskey slightly. And even more than that, if I'm putting a 28-year-old Glendronach into a hip flask, and then suddenly I pour in, clean that out, sterilize it a bit, and put in another whiskey, you can actually still pick up parts of the original whiskey that's there. Oh, wow. So with glass, it's very easy to fully sterilize it. So you can switch from one to the other. You can have a 25-year-old Macallan versus a cast strength, Caroon or whatever, and you won't taste the difference there. As in they'll be very distinct. So that was really important to me. Then I look at the fact that as well as it being really strong, it also has a rubber membrane that goes around it with, get this, a slot, so you can actually see the level of whiskey in there. I mean, that's genius. Why did all hip flasks have that? So that was really important. And replaceable cork inlays. So you put a new little layer of cork in there, so it helps with the aromatics, it helps keep everything in there, but it changes it with every whiskey you put in. Brilliant idea. So I knew straight away I had to buy that. In fact, I bought 2 of them. Here's the problem with that. Everything I just said there doesn't matter at all. I didn't buy it because of any of those reasons. Because here's the reality. I don't use hip flasks. Never have, never will. In fact, since I've owned that, and I've owned that for many years now, I've used it twice. Once because we were in lockdown and going up to Auckland when we were back in New Zealand, and I didn't want to have to take a full bottle of whiskey up, for a special occasion for my wife and I. We had our wedding anniversary. So I just took some in a hip flask and thought, oh, that's a unique carrying thing. Cool. I didn't use it as a hip flask. I just used it to cart whiskey across the country. And then the other time is we went out on very recently, we went out on a river cruise. And it's just a local river cruise here. And they said you can bring your own spirits and things. I thought, oh, sweet. I'll just put some whiskey in there. I had this brand new whiskey I wanted to try. Put it in there and sat out on the back of this boat drinking this whiskey. It was so nice. But the thing is, I don't use hip flasks. And yet I went and bought those. I didn't buy them for all those reasons. I bought them for 2 very specific things. One, because when I tell you that story about this hip flask, and I tell everyone about the hip flask, I'm proud of those hip flasks, like, oh, they're amazing, blah, blah, blah. 2 things happen. First thing is you go, oh, wow, Vince is a whiskey fan. So that ties into my sense of identity because I want to be known as a whiskey fan, right? That's something that's important to me. It's something I'm passionate about. So when people know this, I'm now part of the whiskey community. But the second things that happen is everyone, when they listen to those things, they go, you know what? I didn't even know those were a thing. And by the way, before I saw the hip flasks, I didn't know they were a thing either. I'm not actually a whiskey expert, but I just like to think of myself as well.
Whiskey, yeah.
So when I bought them, I tell people about that. They go, wow, Vince must know a lot about whiskey. That gives me a sense of esteem. It kind of makes me into a bit of an expert in that area. So I didn't buy that for any of those logical. I justified it with all those logical reasons, but I bought it because of what it says about me. That's your right to win.
Yeah, and everything you're saying when you told that story, you nailed it because that's what I was saying. I don't drink at all. I'm not a drinker.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking in my head, how cool a glass and I'll never touch whiskey. I'm not going to say never, but it doesn't. It's not my passion. I don't get excited like you do. But I was excited about the story of how cool they did it. And I'm thinking, as a marketer, well, wow, they think of all the problems with the cork and the membrane, and they went out and did research. That brought their esteem to me as a company. And if they went out and made the best water bottle, I don't know if you can see it, with the membrane and all that features that I love, I'm going to remember Vince told me that story. I'm going to buy the water bottle because of their esteem of that company, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you just tapped into another cool aspect in neuromarketing as well, which is stop making ads, stop making kind of copy that's just, trying to sell people on things. Tell stories. It really is. I mean, we do a huge amount of research in neuromarketing around scanning the brain and understanding how the brain, like the neurons fire in your brain and what areas are activated during different things. But they found something really interesting around storytelling. So if I'm here and I say, here's my 3 steps to how to market, step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, my brain will fire. Like we can put an fMRI on my brain, it'll fire in a certain pattern, right? And then you listening to that, when you're listening to my 3 tips of what to do, your brain fires in a very different pattern. It's in a receptive pattern. So mine's in a expressive and yours is in a receptive. So that's just how it works. But if I, instead of going, here's my 3 things, say, look, here's my experience. This is what happened to me. And this is what I found through that process. If I'm sharing a story with you and I'm doing storytelling, then my brain fires in a specific pattern. But what they noticed is the recipient, their brain fires in the exact same pattern. We call it neural coupling, or the geeky neuroscientists will call it mind meld, because they're all giant Star Trek fans. But the fact is your brain's firing the same process. And what that means is you're actually experiencing the same story as the storyteller. So as I'm telling you those stories, when I told you about the whiskey flask, you experienced the same kind of thing of going, oh, wow, oh, yeah, I didn't know that. He's right. And oh, I felt that as well. So when you feel those kind of things, you actually feel a connection to them. So it's a very, very powerful way of marketing. Storytelling trumps everything else when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how many people don't do it enough, because anybody can do it, any industry, storytelling. I mean, and not kudos, I'm just going to pat myself on the back. That's why my podcast is so popular. Yeah. And what I hear the most is, man, I heard this story. I heard her story. Man, her story was amazing. You nailed it. And I'm not trying to, I'm selling something, my podcast, but yeah. And speakers, the guy that goes out and speaks and gives you the facts, and there's 20% do this, is like, that's a story, but tell me a story of what happened that got to the 20%.
Well, I found this, Steve, when I actually did a bit of an experiment around this myself when I was sitting in a conference in Singapore. And I was speaking at the conference, but not till later in the day. And I was watching the speakers get up there. And one guy got up and he was like, hey, here's my 10 steps to whatever, success. And step number 1, step number 2. And what I realized is by step number 6, I actually had this internal dialogue going on in my brain going, wait a minute, is this good? Like, should I be paying attention to this? Should I be writing these down? Like, that sounded okay, but the rest of this I'm not really paying that much attention to. And my brain's just kind of process, is this, it's basically going through what we call the reticular activating system. It's going through that front part, that kind of filter of the brain going, is this something I need to pay attention to either thrive or survive? And so you get to that point. However, the next speaker, and this is where I really noticed it, the next speaker got up there and spoke on a very similar topic, but he started by going, hey, this is who I am. This is why this is important to me. This is what I've been through. And here's the journey of where I discovered this. He shared a story about this. And I tell you now, from point number 1, I was writing down every single point, because all of a sudden I related to this person. My brain went, hey, this is good quality stuff because I know where he's coming from. And it basically, he got my mind to meld with him. So we went through the whole neural coupling thing. So straight away, I'm there with him. I'm experiencing this. I'm basically on stage with him, writing down every single note.
Yeah. So marketing should be that story, that, because my point is, not everybody you want to market. So say there was 100 people there, it connected with you. If it didn't connect with the other 99, that's okay. He's got one person connected.
Precisely. Yeah.
So you want that buyer to be the person you're connected to.
Yeah.
Who would be the other thing? The buyer. Oh, the prospect is somebody is the first speaker you were listening to. You were a prospect there. The second speaker, you were a buyer in case he was selling something. Am I thinking?
You shared a video at the beginning of this from Kathy Waldhouse. Honestly, awesome woman. Loved that episode. We were talking about writing books, and I think that's what we're talking about anyway, if I remember rightly.
Sure.
Look, one of the key things, though, is one of the things we commonly get from people that want to write a book is, oh, but why me? Like, what makes people think that I have, like basically go through the self-doubt and imposter syndrome of going, what gives me the right to write a book? There are so many people that are more knowledgeable and more experienced than I am out there. But what they forget is it's not about that. It's about connecting with someone. And I had the honor of sitting down with Seth Godin and Brian Solis and a bunch of other, like all of my heroes in the industry. I'm at the dinner with them going, I don't belong here. Like, I'm freaking out. This is amazing. So I'm there with them. And it was actually, we were talking about this kind of concept there going, self-doubt and imposter syndrome. My first book was coming out at the time. I'd finished the draft manuscript. I felt very exposed and very vulnerable because Brian said to me, oh, so Vince, you're about to be published. So right now you're thinking, what right do I have to write a book? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, and you're thinking, oh, everyone's going to read this and think, what an amateur and what a fraud and all this kind of, and I went, and I felt very exposed. And he goes, oh, same here. My 8th book's coming out now. I go through this process every single time. And I was like, what? And he goes, oh, yeah, we all do. And we were all joking around about it. And one of the things they said was, it doesn't matter how much an expert you are, you connect with your people. You don't connect with all people, which means I could write the same book on marketing as Seth Godin. He will share his stories. I will share my stories. There will be, obviously way more people that will resonate with Seth's book because he's an incredible writer, one of my favorite of all time. So he'll just have this giant audience going, oh my goodness, I understand marketing now. Thanks to you, Seth. This all makes sense. But there are a bunch of people there that go, oh, this was good stuff. And then they'll read my book on the same topic with my stories and my experience. And they'll go, oh, I get it now. And that's not because I'm a better writer or he's a better writer. Anything. It's because my stories connect with them. When I'm telling my stories, that neural coupling makes them feel seen, makes them feel heard, and they go, oh, you're on the same journey as me. So you don't have to be the best of the best of the best. You just have to be the person that's in front of them right now. So really powerful.
Coupling is a word I'll never forget now because I love that.
Yeah.
And that's true. Tony Robbins could be here as a personal development guy, and I know personal development guys making $1 million a year. Yeah. Now, it's not money, but I think anybody listening, or me or you, $1 million a year, you're pretty okay financially. Yeah. Of course, do your finance, but let's just say they are. And that's the thing is your stories are yours. Yeah. Tony can't take it away. Seth can't take it away. Yeah. Elon Musk can't, whoever's written a book. Or,
I can tell you now, Steve, if Tony Robbins was speaking at the same time you were speaking, I'll be listening to you anyway. So your story would far more connect with me than Tony Robbins would.
There's a perfect example, and I appreciate it. That's why anybody out there want to do a podcast, that's why one of the reasons to do it. Thank you, because now when I mentor podcast, it's a story. And we're coming to a little break here, but you said something being seen. This show is called Together We Serve. And me and you have connected so well. We're like brothers. Yeah. Talk about that, because when you serve somebody, you say, hey, your XYZ is powerful. I love what you're doing. You've made them seen or put them on a TV show or a podcast. Talk about the seen part in marketing.
Absolutely. Well, it's one of the most important things, because if you think about marketing, like just even creating a landing page or creating an ad, one of the first things that goes through people's head is when they get there, is this for me? They look at that page and they go, this is interesting, but am I in the right space here? Is this something I should be reading or paying attention to or watching? And the way that they feel that is that feeling of being seen. And I've seen this. We ran a campaign when I was at Cigna Insurance. We realized that one of the big decision times that people pay for life insurance or think about life insurance is when they're having a baby. Now, you can't just go out there and go, hey, you're having a baby, buy life insurance, because they've got so much on their mind at that point in time. Right, mums, if you know, mums get very, very, very clear-headed, and they're like very focused and go, right, I need to get everything in order because the baby's on the way. So if you're going to speak to them, you can't do it that way. In fact, you can't do it in the logical part of the brain. We had to take them out of the logical into the emotional part of the brain. So one of the things we also realized in talking to every mum, and by the way, we worked in a company of like, I think it was about 1,000 people there at the time. And for some reason, we had like 30 odd people there that were all pregnant at the same time. So we went around and just interviewed all these people and talked to them. And one of the common threads that we picked up is everybody feels like, despite the fact they're super focused and they know they're getting everything in order, they always feel like it's not good enough. And they always feel like, am I doing a good job? So we thought, that's simple. If we're going to do an advertising campaign just on Google Ads, all we did was we mocked it up first and took it around every woman in the office that was pregnant and just said, oh, can you just have a look at this page? and tell me what stands out to you. And every single one of them, because we started the ad with, you're doing a great job being a mum. You know, you're sorting all your finances, you're getting everything in order. Let us take care of the insurance for you. And the response we got from that campaign, we actually had to turn it off because it was too good a response. Like, it was one of those campaigns that just went ballistic. But the reason is because they felt seen. The moment we did that, every woman's going, you know what? They recognize the fact that I'm doing my best, that I'm really trying. And that speaks volumes to people. Like, it's why everybody loves praise. I don't care who you are. I love getting praise as well. I get praise all the time. I never get enough praise. I always want people to say, Vince, you're awesome. Vince, oh, you had a huge impact on me. It makes me feel good. So it's normal.
Speaking my language, being recognized.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I tell people, just walking up to some mother or say, hey, that's a beautiful bow on the baby. And you might change their lives for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 years. Doesn't matter. You made a change and an impact.
I did that in a cafe, Steve. I walked up to a dad there who was fully engaged with his child. Fully engaged. No devices on the table, no phones, no iPads, no nothing, no kid running a market, anything like that. He was totally talking to, at the same level of, and speaking directly to his child. And just suddenly, as I walked past me, mate, you're an awesome dad. And I just walked off. And I tell you now, that guy had a grin on his face probably for the next 3 days. Like, you couldn't get it off because you recognize and felt seen, because you see what he was doing. And he was deliberately doing that. Yeah, it made me feel very insecure as a dad, by the way. I was like, damn, I don't know that I lived up to that, but he was awesome.
Yeah, but that's a lesson that we learn. And before we get on the break, this is something, audience, you need to do more of. We don't have enough of this in the world. Yeah. I'll jump into that, but we'll jump into he's a publisher as well. This guy does everything. If you're a sports fan, he's a utility player. He can play every position. But let's come back to that. Yeah, exactly. Let's come back to a break. We're going to listen to more of his TV podcast he was on, and we'll be back in about 5 or 7 minutes. See you in a bit, everybody.
Well, welcome back to the Professional Rule Breaker Show. I am Kathy Walterhouse, your host for today. And I have to say that you are in for a real treat. I am so excited about my next guest. But before we start, I want to say, be sure to subscribe, because I don't want you missing any one of these amazing guests that I have. So just hit the subscribe button, because my guests and myself, we do everything in our power to help you succeed. So, like I said, I am super excited about my next guest. He is an award-winning marketing and visibility coach. He's a best-selling author of Chasing the Insights, 5-Word Affirmations, and Chat GPT for Marketers. Vince is also the host of the wildly popular Chasing the Insight podcast and the co-host of the NFT Ninja podcast. He's an ex-radio announcer with 20 plus years of marketing, and Vince has been presented with numerous awards, including the Fearless 50, a program designed by Adobe to recognize the world's top 50 marketers. He was a previous CMO at Cigna, and he's founded multiple companies, including ATG Publishing, the Christmas Ninjas, and of course, Chasing the Insights, where he empowers entrepreneurs and business owners to be seen, get published, and position themselves as the thought leader that they are. So as you can tell, this man is very, very busy. So I would like to welcome my guest, Vince Warnock.
Hey, Kathy, how you doing? So honestly, that's one of the best intros. I'm just going to take a copy of that. I'm going to use that to introduce myself everywhere. I sound amazing when you say it.
You do. Like, I don't know if there's anything else that you can do to add to that. That was, you have, a lot of credentials behind you.
Yeah. Lots more to come, hopefully, as well. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And there is so much that we can talk about. But for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to talk about your publishing arm and why everyone out there should become an author, especially if you're in business.
Yeah.
So
oh, my goodness.
Me,
yeah. Oh, I love this topic, mainly because I'm completely utterly biased. Obviously, being an author and knowing what it's like having a book in your hand that you've created is first of all incredible, but also knowing the doors that it opens for you. And there's many reasons why everyone of you listening to this should be an author, but there's two specific ones I want to talk about. One of them is the opportunity that it opens for you, particularly as a business owner or entrepreneur. And for that, I'll give you my experience with this. So why, like, I've always wanted to be an author, but never thought I was capable of doing that. When I was at primary school, which is I don't know what you call it in the US. I'm based in New Zealand. It's
grade school,
basically,
so
yeah, there we
yeah.
go. So age 5, I think I was about age 6, and we were doing handwriting, right? And we were trying to learn writing at school. And I had this weird kind of thing that would happen when I'm trying to write. And what would happen is I know logically all the rules behind grammar. Like I know that you put a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence, you put a capital letter at the beginning of a noun, that kind of thing. It made perfect sense to me. But when I wrote, those rules went out the window. And every time, if I wrote the word connection, it's got 3 N's in it. 2 of them are probably capitals and one's just lowercase. And I'm like, well, this makes no sense. So the teacher I had, it was a terrible teacher at the time. She was trying to analyze this and she couldn't figure it out. So she turned around and it came to a conclusion and said, oh, I know what it is. You're retarded.
Oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
He's not retarded, just so you know. I ended it there. I thought it was pretty funny. Kathy is pretty cool. But you could see that he's written books, but he also helps publish them. You know, when somebody's an entrepreneur, and Vince is definitely a top one because he's looking at not just today, but tomorrow, how he can help people. So now he's written books. He became a publisher to help people publish books like he's done so they could be successful. And we'll talk about his podcast as well, which is very powerful. Let's bring Vince back on. Vince, she is good. Kathy is good.
Amazing. Yeah, Kathy is wonderful. But yeah, no, thankfully I'm not retarded. What it actually was, by the way, was ADHD. And that kind of, funny enough, has actually quite a ripple effect into what I do now. So obviously anyone who deals with ADHD will know that it is actually quite difficult to read sometimes. Like if I read a book that just has walls of text, it's almost impossible. My brain just goes, I don't want to read this, dude. This is going to be a huge effort. I probably have to read it 6 or 7 times to actually comprehend what's going on the page. So it's a very difficult ordeal. So despite that, by the way, I've now written 11 bestsellers and we publish, and I read every single one of my clients' books multiple times. Like I go through them. But what we discovered, and this came accidentally, Steve, I don't even know if I've told you this yet, but we were in a publishing group. So there's a bunch of publishers there, and most publishers are great, by the way. I love publishing companies. They really do care about you. They want people to succeed. They want them to be seen. It's awesome. There are a couple of bad eggs out there, but most of those get weeded out. But we were in this group and it was a little bit of a love fest. Like people go, oh, Vince, man, this guy Steve was going, oh, I love your cover designs. I've sent that to my team to go, hey, we should be up there with Vince on this. Like, this is next level. And I'm like, oh, appreciate that, man. Hey, I love the book you did on this. And he goes, oh, thanks, man. But we had one older gentleman in the group and he scoffed. And he did this whole, pff. And I was like, what's going on? Like, and then he spoke up and he goes, oh, I've read your books, Vince. I've looked at them because we all look at each other's stuff, to get ideas. And he goes, your interior formatting. He says, amateur hour. Now, this is highly offensive, obviously, because we pride ourselves on very professional looking books. These books, everyone's very proud of the books when they get them. So I'm like, where is this coming from? And he goes, oh, look, you've got line spaces after paragraph, bold headings. And he goes, you obviously don't understand the concept of a standard. And I was like, what? So now everyone there jumped to my defense. They all said, actually, I really like Vince's formatting. I found it really easy to read, blah, blah, all this kind of thing. So he got to get shot down a little bit. And I left it there. But I went away and, I'm a sensitive person. I actually was quite hurt by the whole scenario. And I was like, this is not enjoyable. So I went away and I kind of went back to my team and said, look, why do we format the books the way that we do? And they go, oh, that's really easy. So I'm like, oh, phew. So it must be like a standard that we uphold and everything. I said, yeah, that's what you like. I mean, that's not a reason to format that way. But then we realized what it was. And I compared our books with some of the other more traditional books. And I realized when I look at that wall of text, with paragraphs that run onto each other and everything, my brain just goes, no. When I look at our books, I'm like, aha, I could read that. So I realized we had accidentally created the ADHD publishing standard. So we actually formalized it. We looked at, we use 1.3 line spacing. We have the line spaces underneath paragraphs. We have the head of foot. Like, everything looks super professional. They're great looking books, but they are designed to help people that are neurodiverse. Anyone with ADHD, with dyslexia, dyslexics will still have difficulty reading some of it, but it'll be a lot easier than just a wall of text and things. So we kind of doubled down on that, and then that made us realize who our market are. I mean, we're nonfiction publishers. We help entrepreneurs to be seen as thought leaders. That's our whole goal there, is to help them tell their stories, help them have a voice, and help them to be positioned as thought leaders. But we also realize we also deal with a lot of people with dyslexia, ADHD, and things, and help them do it. And I can tell you now, Steve, it is the most fulfilling thing ever. Ever. Like when you've got someone who's dealt with dyslexia their whole life, failed as a child because the school weren't prepared to deal with something like that, and trying to make something of his life now. And he's like, right, this is it. And he was fantastic guy, super bright. And he rips open that envelope. We're on Zoom together, rips open the envelope, pulls out that book and looks at it. And I'm waiting for that. Usually we get the little glint in the eye and the little smile in the corner of the mouth going, I did it. I published a book. But I got nothing. It was blank. And I'm going, he doesn't like it. Oh no. Like, I'm starting to freak out now. Like, he doesn't like his own book, blah, blah, blah. And you just turn around and just burst into tears. And you just said, I never, ever thought I could achieve this. Like, me, an author, this like little me will be so proud of me right now. And in that moment, I obviously kept really professional, Steve. And I was like, oh, yes, no, I bawled my eyes. I ugly cried on the call with him. The two of us, grown men, crying together because he's done something. We helped him to do that. I mean, it's his work. We can't take full credit for it at all. I never would. It's his work. He did the hard yards there. But we facilitated, we made that easier for him. And that was just such a special, special moment. So,
and you're a tool to change people's lives. And that's what you did there, and many times.
Exactly. Yeah. But here's the irony of the whole thing. A lot of other publishers have adopted our ADHD publishing standards. That particular publisher that scoffed, I think it was about August last year, he adopted the publishing standards. His company did. Now, I've kept professional. I haven't reached out to him yet because I want to go, nah. But no.
You do that in the universe.
I think it's a good thing. I would never try. I joke, of course.
Yeah. Well, and that's the universe talking. When he adopts your ADHD standard, that's the nah, because now he's taking on what you're doing.
There's also a positive nah, because it means now he's going to be helping so many more people. So
Vince, that's why you're here. That's why you had you on my podcast. You're a servant. Because you know what? Did you hear what he just said? Hey, I got him a little bit because we did something right, but it's more important that he's going to share this and pay it forward for other people who couldn't write books before that he's talking to, or he said no to. Now he can say yes and change their lives as well.
Well, I mean, this is important to me, Steve. I mean, this is something. So if it wasn't for people doing that kind of thing for me, I wouldn't be here. I'm very cognizant of that. Like, as a child, I grew up in a very, very abusive home. We grew up in poverty. And by the way, it's not a sob story in the sense that every child around me grew up in that. Yeah. We grew up in New Zealand. Every child around me grew up in an abusive home. There was about 2 families that had stable homes, and they were so weird because it was like they hug each other. There's no one's punching them, or like, what is this family? It's so bizarre. But that's what we grew up with. And it wasn't till age 11, actually, where I had a teacher who recognized ADHD, even though we kind of hadn't really invented it then, but he had seen this before about attention. So he actually took me aside with a couple of things that really helped me out. But he also was the first person to ever believe in me. And we had this experience in the class. It was hilarious. I was a bit of a smart ass kid, to be honest, right? School was my safe space for me because home was, obviously something that was violent and something I had no voice. I literally couldn't speak up at home because otherwise you were a target. I couldn't do anything there. I felt so invisible there. So school was where I got to be myself, and I'm a bit of a cheeky kid. And I'm sitting in the class and he goes, all right, class, we got your school projects, class projects rather coming up. Don't forget, you got to have your written essay in and all this kind of thing. I was 11. And he goes, and you got to do your oral presentation. I went, oh. He goes, what's that noise, Vince? And I said, well, why do we have to do an oral presentation? And he goes, well, it prepares you for the real world, Vince, when you have to do oral presentations in the real world. I said, come on, look around the class. Who of us is ever going to get to do an oral presentation? And when are we going to get that opportunity? He said, how about now? And I went, what? And he goes, come up in front of the class. He goes, okay, class, Vince is going to speak for 5 minutes. What topic is he going to speak on? And he put me on the spot, and he put me on the spot deliberately. He needed to cut me down a little bit in a positive way. Like, he's not a mean guy.
Yeah.
But I got up there and I was suddenly really, really nervous. And by the way, a bunch of 11-year-olds trying to come up with a topic. Oh my goodness. The final topic they chose is an egg. Like, so I had to
An
spend
egg?
5 minutes on about an egg. Yep. And the irony is, the only thing he's going, you got 20 seconds to prepare. My brain just went, huh? Well, the only thing that popped in my head was that saying, which came first, the chicken or the egg? So he goes, right, your time starts now. And I went, well, first of all, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And then my brain literally went to this other space, man. Everything just flowed out of me. I'm a storyteller by trade anyway. Like, I had that gift as a child. I just didn't know it. And it just started flowing out of me. And it was one of those moments. It was really surreal. I lost all kind of track of time, but I could pull a thread and make people laugh. And I could pull another thread and make them gasp, and pull another thread and make them go, oh, like I could get an emotional reaction out of people with my storytelling. So I have no idea what I spoke on in the middle. All I remember is starting with which came first, the chicken or the egg. And I remember ending with him saying something like, you've got 20 seconds left and blah, blah, blah. So obviously the chicken came first. And the whole class like erupted and everything. And I'm like, whoa. And now I'm feeling pretty superior at that point in time because I nailed that, and I knew I nailed it. So I turned around and I'm like, like this. And he goes, Vince, that was awesome. I mean, I know, like, it's a joke. But he got down on my level and he held me by the shoulders and he goes, no, listen to me. That was awesome. You have a gift. Do you realize you could do something really significant with your life? And the moment he did that, I felt something weird on the inside, like this bubbly feeling. I was like, what the heck is this? It was hope. The first time ever, I felt like somebody believed me.
God.
And he taught me in that one moment, he taught me I didn't have to be defined by my past. I didn't have to be defined by my environment. I could write my own story. I could do something significant. So it had a really profound impact on me. And I did get to tell him before he passed the impact he had on my life and many others, by the way. Incredible teacher. But the other thing that it did is it also made me realize everybody else should have that opportunity as well. So it really did motivate me to want to impact other people and want to let them see themselves, that they can write their own story, that they can do something really, really significant, because every single one of us can. So, yeah. So if he hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be on your show because I wouldn't be the type of person that gives to other people. I'd be like,
it's amazing the dominoes of the fall when that happens. What's his teacher's name?
Mr. Few was his name.
Mr. Few, you're definitely in heaven. I know you're listening to. I'm a faith guy.
Yep.
Thank you, because that story of hope needs to be told more and more.
Oh, absolutely. And also, by the way, just the contrast between the teacher when I'm 6 telling me I'm retarded and versus the teacher that inspired hope and a future and everything else there. I mean, honestly, it just shows the importance of teachers. Like, not all teachers are created equal, by the way. Sorry if you're a teacher in here. If you're a teacher watching this show, you're obviously a good teacher. But not all teachers are created equal. Yeah.
No, I thank you, because you're right. That's and we're going to jump on your magazine because we're getting short on time. I don't want to miss it. But this is the thing that I tell people, audience, listen to this. That's $1 million tip he gave, because he didn't know what you're going. I mean, he knew probably a little bit, but he didn't tell you, hey, you're awesome. You've got something big here, because he knew all. He did that because he just wanted to serve you. He was just being open and transparent. Be that way in business, in life. God, please, because it will change. I'm going to get emotional here, because it will change your life. And this story's getting me. So let's jump on Business Mind Magazine. Tell us about this.
Yeah, look, I love magazines. I've been a magazine reader since I was little. I used to read Empire magazine. And by the way, one of my greatest moments ever as a young person was Empire magazine put out a list of the 100 most influential movies of all time. And the top 5, I couldn't disagree with. There was Jaws, there was the original King Kong movie, there was the original Star Wars trilogy. They kind of grouped them together. And of course, there was, I've forgotten the name of it, Rosebud, that movie. But anyway, they had the top 5 movies there. Oh, and Lord of the Rings trilogy was also in there as one. And they had specific reasons for those. But one of the things they said is, what do they contribute to the industry? What was their impact on society? And what wouldn't be here if they wasn't there? And the way they did it, Star Wars trilogy came in at number 3. And I wrote to them, and they not only published my letter in that magazine, they actually corrected their list and put Star Wars at number 1, because I highlighted that we wouldn't have green screen or blue screen technology, THX or Dolby. We wouldn't have most of the directors that were inspired by that, like Ridley Scott, like Ron Howard, all these different people, So they actually correct. So that was awesome. So magazines have been really important to me. But one of the issues I had with magazines was, as entrepreneurs, we want exposure. We want the chance to tell our story. And I believe that everybody deserves to tell their story. Everyone deserves a voice. And I do a lot of work in the background with like Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, and a bunch of others. So I know what it costs to be in those magazines. I know how hard it is to get in those magazines because everyone wants to be in there. So if you're an entrepreneur, I think it's like 5 to 12K just to get an article in there. If you want to be on the cover, actually, I'm not allowed to tell you how much it costs to be on the cover, but it's well above the tens of thousands of dollars. It's very expensive to be on the cover there. And there's no problem with that. There's no problem with pay-as-you-go models, all those kind of things. They're absolutely fine. But what I realized is that meant when we're reading these magazines that showcase these experts, we are only looking at one specific demographic of that, and that is who could afford to be in that magazine. We weren't reading about the young upstart that was trying something really different, or the entrepreneur that was challenging the way that we're doing things in the industry, or somebody who was experimenting with something and getting amazing results. These are the stories. This is what I want to hear. This is the stuff that really gets results for us as entrepreneurs. So I kept moaning about that, and then one day realized, I should just do that ourselves. So we created a Business Mind magazine, and it's a free quarterly magazine for entrepreneurs. It really is showcasing the incredible people, some of the incredible people we get to have on our show, Chasing the Insights, some of the incredible people I meet through the industry. And it's just a great way of showcasing their talent and some of the incredible things they're doing out there. And we've had so much amazing feedback. We've got, I think we're close to 60,000 subscribers now, and we've only had 2 issues out. The third one comes out very shortly.
Powerful. I love it. We're coming to the end here. Real quick, how can people connect with you?
Oh, man, I make it super hard. No, I'm joking. Really easy. Just go to chasingtheinsights.com. You'll see there links to, obviously, ATG Publishing. You'll see links to the magazine. You'll see links to the podcast. You'll see all my books on there. But you also see some social media links. Reach out. Connect with me everywhere. If you've got any questions, you want any help with any of this kind of stuff, you want to jump on a free call and talk about marketing or publishing, any of those kind of things, just connect with me through social media. Just don't spam me. Like, I really don't like spammers or cold sellers on there. But if you're serious about pushing your business forward and connecting deeply with your customers and being positioned as a thought leader, then definitely I am always keen to meet you.
One last question.
Sure.
So I've reserved a Learjet for you, flying out of New Zealand.
Yep.
You have 3 empty seats. Who are you going to invite to fly with you? Why are they invited to go? And where is your destination?
Okay. Well, first has to be my wife, because we go everywhere together. She is my better half. She is my soulmate. Like, we've got our 30th wedding anniversary come out this year. I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. Second is Jeff Lynne, one of the greatest, I won't hear any argument on this, greatest musician of all time, lead singer of ELO, wrote most songs that you probably don't even realize. Anything Tom Petty did, Roy Orbison, George Harrison, a bunch of others, he did all of that for them. I just want to talk to him about the impact that his music has had on my life, because it really has had a huge impact on me. And of course, George Lucas. I mean, come on. Only because Stan Lee's passed away, and Stan Lee is one of my all-time heroes, genuinely authentic and amazing guy, and actually had no idea how much he shaped my childhood, not through just reading the comics, they were powerful, but reading his letters, because he wrote in the ball pen in there. And he was somebody who genuinely inspired a whole pile of kids. Like, he talked a lot about racism. He talked a lot about bigotry and hatred and things, and why they're so toxic and why we shouldn't have this in the world. Talked about being a better person, and it just inspired me to do so as well. So I would love to, if we could bring him back in time, we'd definitely bring Stan Lee back. Otherwise, George Lucas, talk about all things Star Wars. And where we would go, that would be probably Bora Bora, on a above water bungalow there. Stay there for a week with 5-star chefs, or actually in St. Lucia, there's a mountainside thing. Can't remember what it's called. The Jade Mountain Resort. Honestly, these things are next level. Just beautiful. You'll never want to leave.
Well, Vince, you're a rock star. I'm going to send you to both places, because you deserve that. Because you really, man, I appreciate you, Vince. I thank you for coming on. And, audience, reach out to him. Reach out to me if you need to connect with them. We've connected. We're going to do some things together. And this year, we're going to do more things together. He just gets it. Yeah, we have to make money. You have to charge something. Because, one, you got bills, but that brings value. But, as you said, he's got all these resources. And you saw that it said free Business Mind magazine, just so you know. But with that being said, man, we're running out of time. This guy is so good. Thanks again, Vince. And we'll see you all next week, Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Together we serve. Learn more, get educated, get motivated, get inspired to make a change in your world. See you, everybody.